Like, there's something there. You could build this into a story, but they just didn't because they thought they had enough.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are back. The Eye of the Storm podcast. I'm here with my boy Daniel.
Hi.
And EG. What's good, man? Daniel, movie recommendation times. What's the best recent thing you've seen?
My best recent thing this week is Crimson Tide, which is a 1995 thriller movie, which is essentially set in the early 90s. Russia is heading towards a civil war, and a rebel faction has secured nuclear weapons. And the story is about the crew of an American nuclear submarine that, while out on mission, gets the order to launch nuclear weapons at the Russian nuclear weapons. And before they can, so they get this launch order, and they start the sequence, which takes several minutes. And then they get a second order, but they get attacked by a Russian submarine, and so the orders and the transmission is interrupted. And so the captain says, "We got our orders. Clearly something is going on. If the Russian submarine is attacking us, we're going to launch the nuke." And then the first officer says, "There's a reason we got the second order, right? We need to confirm the order, otherwise we might start World War III." And the two essentially get into this conflict over how to interpret this order and what the proper procedure is. And different members of the crew take different sides. And the whole thing is essentially about making this decision based on incomplete information. And you have to decide now, because even deciding to do nothing is still a choice. And so either way, if you get it wrong, you're causing the death of millions potentially. And so this decision weighs on these characters, and they choose different answers for how to respond to the situation. And they each have very clear reasons that they articulate, and that they basically, it's basically like a conflict of words and principles over control over what to do about this. And one of the reasons I like it, it's not just because it's a really solid thriller movie, but it's also like the center of the movie is really both sides have incompatible perspectives, and they have reasons for these opinions. And the movie does not take a side in terms of which is the correct one, just that you have to do something, and different people have different opinions, and they all can articulate and defend those opinions. And there's not a clear answer as to which of them is right. And that is something I think that's missing a lot from recent movies, like for the past decade plus, where the movie knows exactly whose side it is on, and the other side does not get to articulate its perspective. And this happens in political stuff. But it also happens in other places. Like, it seems like modern writers are not really interested in having both sides be assertive in their opinions, even if one is clearly wrong. Right? There's lots of movies out there where characters defend reprehensible opinions, but they do it with convictions because that character has reasons for what they believe, right? And that's what makes an interesting story, right? It's not both, all sides are equal. It's about it's a more interesting story if there are multiple sides to an issue, and you understand where everybody's coming from. And it was really refreshing to see a movie where that was the case.
That's a movie with Denzel Washington. I definitely put that on my watch list. That came out in the 90s, I believe, right?
95.
95. Cool. And is there any action at all, or is it just mainly like debating?
It's a submarine movie, right? The entire movie essentially happens on a submarine. So there's very intense, like there are intense sequences, but it's like people looking at consoles, right? It's not like there aren't really fight scenes in that sense. Okay. It's like if you've seen any submarine movies, they can be very tense, as kind of like one submarine tries to outsmart the other one or outmaneuver the other one, and there's a lot of tension there, but there's not a lot of action.
Okay. Cool. All right, that's definitely on my watch list. Thank you for that. Thankfully, I just remembered that I watched Overlord not too long ago. I've seen this movie before, but I decided I want to go watch it again, and I'm glad that I actually watched it again. It was good. So pretty much American soldiers this is during the World War II. So American soldiers looking for a German tower that they need to blow up, and then they encounter German zombies. But obviously these German zombies are created through German scientists and some sort of
Yeah.
liquid that they inject in them. But yeah, man,
There's like Germans in occupied France experimenting on people creating zombies.
Yeah. Literally, it was fun. It's a fun film. I think the performances was really good. And the way that the zombies were in this one, they were very action figure like rather than the brain dead zombie type. So they were very like physical, which I liked. I liked seeing this side of the zombies, but they were zombies, but they were like zombies on steroids. Yeah. Story was great. Story was good. I don't really think it should be I don't think the story itself is the highlight, but it's obviously the mission at hand and obviously seeing the resolution, obviously seeing them build up to the resolution of that story. So obviously it's action packed for me personally. Not just with the encounters of zombies, but obviously with the war itself as well that they have between the American soldiers and the German soldiers. So yeah. And obviously the close encounters too, which was good. But yeah, I definitely recommend Overlord if you guys haven't seen that one.
I saw it a while ago and it's pretty good.
Definitely. But now now it's time for the main event, the main discussion. The watched. Danny G.
So this movie could have been a lot of things, right? It could have been a dark fairy tale, it could have been a horror movie, it could have been a mystery, it could have been a character study. And I think it's like a poor effort on all of these, and none of them excel. So I didn't care about the characters, I didn't care about the mythology. It's not scary. It's not it doesn't even have that mythical vibe to it that it certainly tries to lean into. I think the plot makes no sense. I think the scenario makes no sense. Like on no level does it really work, other than it's shot pretty well for the most part, and like the pacing is good. Like I wasn't bored exactly, but even though like so actually what's impressive is that I wasn't bored even though very little was happening. So but like it doesn't drag, it's not overly long. Like the actors really try, but there's not much going on.
Yeah, this was definitely. I think this might be my biggest disappointment of 2024 when it comes to the movies I was looking forward to, because I was looking forward to this film. This film is my type of film when a group of people are in a situation of survival. Like that is my type of film, especially when it's a group of strangers and just that whole vibe and the whole environment, the whole type of situation. Those are my type of films. And then when I saw the trailer, so of course I was excited. And and yeah, it was underwhelming. It was an underwhelming experience. Especially with the characters, like it just didn't feel like they had their own individual personality. Like I get that you're locked of course some of the characters were locked in that room that they were in for months and in the woods for months, but there should still have been some sort of individualness where it's very distinct. You can tell, okay, that's that character, that's that character, that's that character. They felt all the same. Even the introduction with the new character, she was pretty much similar to them. I was like, how is that possible? I get that's her personality. It was very not quirky, but all of them felt like they had a sense of. It felt unnecessarily mystical. Because they felt very mystical and it just felt unnecessary at times. I don't know why they were mystical. I get it that they're in a mystical situation and they're in a mystical situation. I get that, but still, it was just very unnecessary many times and it just felt very bland. One thing I will say that I really liked about the film, which we will get to the likes, was the monsters, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I just it felt at times like watching the play, even with the dialogue. I just like the dialogue in terms of like the interactions that they had between each other. It just, I don't know if that was intentional, but because when I say intentional, because I think what the director or the writer was trying to do was, okay, the reason why they're speaking very plain, like as if they were speaking as if they all cracked, and when people crack, they speak very like perfect English, very as if they're acting. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know, Daniel, if you could kind of get the vibe. Like they were pretty much speaking very similarly, and it was very like there was a scene where they were telling the girl.
I just thought it was bad writing.
Yeah,
honestly, I didn't overthink it. I think it's just this is an author writing lines, not people saying what they feel and think.
It felt like a spoken word. Literally, some of the scenes, it felt some of the dialogue scenes. It felt like it was a spoken word. That's why I said I don't know if this is intentional. Because if it's intentional, then I see what she's trying to do. As in, like they've reached a point of madness now where they're speaking very poetry-like, but it just isn't. It's unnecessary. Like it felt so unnecessary. So,
and I think you can make that work. I think you can have dialogue that is very heightened and very artificial, but if you do it right, it can work, and if it's the right story, and especially if this has like a dreamlike, fairy tale-like quality to it, it could have worked. It just didn't.
Yeah, I was disappointed.
Mostly because a lot of it's just very blunt exposition, right?
Yeah.
Like people just talk about what's happening, and there's very little showing and a lot of telling going on. And it's not a complicated story, right? Like it's not like you don't have to introduce this vast, complex mythology that makes the plot work, right? It's pretty simple.
Which is strange because I actually thought it was going to get complicated because when I'm watching, I'm like, surely this can't be it. Like there has to be this. It's building up to something, and the fact that it built up to, okay, technically it built up to the cave when the underground, the bunker. I was like, okay, that's when it reached to that point, the big revelation. I was like, is that it? Like this feels so unnecessary. It feels like they were like the whole project, the whole like just the existence of this world feels so unnecessary. One thing that I did really like, because I think we might go get into the likes because we're kind of slaying the hell out of this film.
Yeah.
But one thing I really did like was the monsters.
It'll be a quick segment.
Yeah. One thing I really did like was the monsters. The aesthetic look, their abilities was very threatening. I think they could have done a lot with the monsters. Like especially there was a scene where I forgot her character's name, but the mixed race lady, her husband,
Kiara.
Yeah, Kiara and her husband, where her husband was at the door. Like a scene like that, I actually really like that scene because that was a scene where they were like, the dilemma was growing. Obviously, the situation was like, okay, do I let them in? Obviously, there was conflict. That scene I actually liked.
But there was also no real mystery. Like we knew it was a changeling.
What was he though?
I think so, if I remember correctly.
Because,
but like I didn't like watching it. I didn't feel like I had like there was a mystery. Like it could have like you can construct a scene like that in a way where it could go either way, and it's obvious in hindsight. But as you're watching it, it's not clear, and that's where the dread comes from. That the character also doesn't know, and so what if they make the wrong decision? Right? And I didn't feel like that was going on. I felt like I don't remember exactly which way it went in that particular scene now.
They took him. I think he was. I think that actually was his husband. I'm not too sure, but because when he actually showed himself in the camera, then the monster, I don't know if it was a monster, I don't know if he did it himself, but he got grabbed away quickly. So that's why.
Oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah, no, I think like that. I think it was clear that he was dead and they were impersonating him.
Okay, so they were impersonating him. Are you sure?
I thought so.
Because I thought so as well, but then I was like, okay, so then why would they drag him like that if he wasn't? Like,
to make it look real? I don't know.
True. But I think, see, like even now, we're not sure. Well, no, you're sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. I thought that maybe that could have been him. So that's a scene where I think, okay, the conflict in this scene and the whole growing dilemma, that's something which, there shouldn't be more of. And obviously, seeing that the whole scene of deception, they should have used the monsters' abilities even more, like they did in that scene. Like the monsters should have had a more like bigger presence. I think their presence was finally shown in the third act. Yeah. Throughout, we only saw glimpses of them. Obviously, them looking, watching them behind the mirror, and then obviously we seen their presence. Which, by the way, they had a bit of there was like vampirism, which I kind of liked as well. The whole sunlight and the clone, obviously, in the transforming into, to a replica of the person. There was a bit of vampirism in that, which I kind of enjoyed. But yeah, we saw bits of their, of their threat and their power, and I think that kind of should have been explored a bit more, personally.
Yeah, But the thing about the fairies is that they kind of have one trick, right? They impersonate people who are clearly not them, right? For the most part, at least. Like even in the final sequence, like the shape-shifting doesn't actually do anything because it's not actually a question of who's real, right? Like in a story like this, like you kind of want to be surprised by who's a changeling, or you're not sure if this character has been replaced and stuff like that, right? Like I thought the fairies were kind of lame. Number one, because they did only the one trick, and number two, because the entire design was very cliched. Like it's like for the last 20 years, every movie monster has looked like this, where it's kind of got distorted limbs and kind of pale skin, like gray ashen skin, and it makes this gurgling sound, and every movie monster is that way, like almost all of them, and I'm really tired of it.
Do you think you thought they were lame because we didn't see much of their power though? Because I think the only time where we saw a lot of their power was near the end. Obviously,
I mean,
when the big revelation came out of who one of the main characters were.
So it's mostly that like okay, so the distorted limbs and the weird proportions, that's in the uncanny valley, right? Or like that's kind of human but not really, and therefore it looks creepy and it weirds us out. But it was so in a very obvious way, and in terms of what they actually do, it's always the one thing, which is impersonate somebody in an unconvincing way. And except for Madeline, which did not have any impact on me at all. Like her being a changeling did very little for me. And then they also don't do a lot in terms of interesting things. And they also didn't feel all that much like fairies. They came across to me as very generic movie monsters. Like in folklore, fairies are like they steal your children and replace them with their own, right? So that you can't be sure if your child is actually your child or a monster, like stuff like that, right? And they lean into that a little bit, but they don't do this, right? Where, like I think what they should have done is there should have been a child in the house, and it's not clear, like, and they try to rescue the child, and then it turns out it's a changeling, something like that. Like that would have been close. Like, I understand this is a book adaptation, and if it didn't happen in the book, it didn't happen in the movie. But just on its own merits, like if you're going to really lean into like the folklore, then maybe do that. Do the evil child thing, and they didn't. Like Madeline being a changeling, I didn't care. Like, why would I?
I think that was, in terms of Madeline being a changeling, I kind of figured that out I'll probably say by the end, not even by the end. I'll probably say by the end of the second act. I think that scene was, it didn't really do anything, but it was one of the most interesting scenes from the film. Because like there wasn't much to actually look for when it comes to this movie in terms of what was like highlight moments, but in terms of but like I said, that's all. With what we're given, I'd say that was one of the most interesting parts in the scene. I think what they should have done, for me personally, what they should have done more of the monsters, they should have at least like find a way to build on the deception. So maybe they should have had more scenes like where we saw the husband, and they should have had, they should have, even though I think they need to watch you in order to transform into you. So I do get that couldn't have been incorporated where they transform into their loved ones to try and get them out of the house. But they're
also not trying to replace anybody, right? Like this just popped into my head, right? But what if they all go out on their own every day into the forest to gather food, right? What if one by one they get replaced by the changelings?
That's what I was thinking as well. But then I remembered about the whole sunlight thing. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That's why.
Which also makes very little sense, but okay. But they didn't have to put that in there, right? Like fairies, not. I don't think that's in the folklore. I'm not sure if there are any fairies watching. Let us know in the comments. But like from a story standpoint, the whole light thing, I don't know. Like first of all, it already didn't matter, right? So I guess I can go on my rant about how the scenario is stupid, because like I think with something like this, you have to really make the scenario work in order to get the audience to suspend their disbelief and really buy into it. So so centuries ago, there was a war between humans and fairies, and the fairies lost, and fairies were banished into an underground vault, right? And they've been trying to get out. But they are out, they come out of the burrows every day. And the reason they can't leave is because of sunlight. So, but then they stumble upon a tomb, and it's like the seal is unbroken, which implies that the fairies are still locked in. Like, you can't have both, right? You can't have fairies stalking the woods, and you can have the seal unbroken. And this whole thing about the sunlight is also not true, because Madeline can go out in the day, and you can so she's a changeling, but then why didn't she leave right away? And is it because she has to study humans for longer to be a convincing human? But why does she want to leave? Why does she want to infiltrate human society? I don't know what the stakes are. Like, what happens if the fairies get out? Nothing, apparently, because by the end, Madeline is just living among humans and nothing bad has happened. Like, in general, like, there doesn't seem to be any stakes. Like, if it was like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers type thing where people were getting replaced one by one, and so eventually everybody will be replaced, and that is the threat. Like, that's, like, I'm not saying it should have done that, or needed to do that, but that would have been one way of creating stakes, right? I don't understand why it's a bad thing if the fairies get out, right? Another one is if they kill everybody in the forest, right, and don't let anybody leave. How did they build the bunker? Right? He says something about how it's really dangerous, and I think he even says like workers have been killed or something. I'm not sure, but like, was the dog professor going to stay in the forest until the end of his life? And if not, what was his exit plan? And if he had an exit plan, why didn't they use it? Right? So, and why build a bunker in the forest? Why not build it on the edge of the forest where you can observe the fairies? You know what I mean? Like whichever way you slice it, it doesn't make sense.
I hear what you're saying. I think the reason why the Doctor, I thought the reason why the Doctor built the whole bunker and the reason why he was studying the Watchers, because I think he was trying to bring back his wife to life.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that was one. And in terms of why the half human, half fairy didn't leave. Well, not didn't leave. I think the reason why she wanted to leave was obviously because she was treated rubbish amongst the community, because obviously she was a half breed. But at the same time, and the reason why
but not poorly enough to just kill her.
Sorry?
Right, not enough to just kill her.
True, but when you're being treated like rubbish, it kind of makes sense that you want to leave that environment.
But then why not say, hey, look, here's the deal. I'm one of them, but I'm an outcast, and I know how to escape. So do what I say, and you live. Like, why the charade? Like, that works if you have to study people and you want to copy their mannerisms, and you need time to do that. So you observe people over months and years, right? Like maybe you can, if you really dig into it, you can find an answer to this. But just in terms of what happens in the movie and what the point is, like, the creepy thing is that you are trapped in the forest and there's evil creatures watching you and you have to follow their rules, otherwise they will kill you. But all the rules that are being set up are constantly being broken, and the consequences of, like, okay, so obviously the people want to survive, right? They want to make it out of the forest, and that's kind of it. So I don't know. I found the scenario very, very frustrating. It didn't make any sense. There were no stakes. There were nothing interesting. Like, these are it's a fantasy story, right? You can make the magic do whatever you want. So the trick is to set up rules that make interesting things happen. And so if you have to break your own rules in order to make the story happen, you pick the wrong rules, or you should be telling a different story. One of the two. And this movie just spent a lot of time establishing these rules and how they're important and how breaking them gets you killed, and then they break the rules. Like I think this is just bad writing, like 101.
Was there like any deep meaning which she was trying to convey that we missed? Because honestly, I just don't get. It felt very monotone. There wasn't any, like you said, there wasn't really any stakes. It was very simple. So I'm like, okay, like I said, I always thought the simplicity was building to some sort of, mind-boggling psychological moment where we're gonna have to figure out what happens, or it's gonna end in like a cliffhanger or something, but it didn't. So was there like, do you think there was deeper meanings that we missed?
I don't know. I mean, like, if it's there, I missed it. I don't believe there's anything profound going on. So,
and what do you think it would change your outlook on the film?
Well, I mean, like, if I watched it again, which is not likely, but let's say I watched it again and then I picked up on details or some kind of theme or some kind of idea that I missed the first time because I was focused on the wrong things or whatever, then fine. Then I changed my mind. It's just watching this movie, I did not have. It felt like a mystery for its own sake, but it's also a really simple and lame one that doesn't make anything interesting happen. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what really comes out of that. So, for like, here's an example, right? Mina is depressed because she inadvertently caused the death of her mother as a child, right? And it created this rift between her and her sister. And she's not had a functioning life because of that, right? So she lives in a foreign country where she has no ties, where there's no family, she's far away from everybody. There's like this barrier between her and everybody else. And she constantly pretends to be somebody else. But really only when she's dating, right? She's like not in her daily life, but when she goes out on dates, she changes her appearance and she tells makes up stories about who she is because she doesn't want to be herself. There's a clear thematic parallel to Changelings here, right? Because she's impersonating other people to fit in and to function. So what? Right? What's the point? Like, does she I think here's my theory, right? I think we're supposed to look at this and say, oh, there's a parallel here. And I remember from literature class that parallels are good writing. Therefore, this is a good movie. That's why I think this is happening. I don't think it's saying anything, profound or otherwise.
That's a good point.
But we can take this further, right? She has a twin. You know what's like a twin? A changeling.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like she not only has a sister, she has a twin. And they look to be and twins look like the same person, but they're not the same person. And maybe if they really and there's this whole thing about twins pretending to be each other and fooling other people and so on. And then if I was sitting in an exam room, right, and I had to come up with something, I would write something about this whole twin thing is about how people treat appearances as more important than substance. And so when Mina pretends to be somebody else, she becomes somebody else because nobody cares enough about her to actually get to know her as a person. And so when she takes on a different name and puts on a wig, she really is a different person, similar to how the changelings become different people because other people only see their appearance. And if they are skilled enough at copying other people, then they become those people, right? Like something like that, right? I think that's all very surface, and I don't think it means anything.
But you know what? At the same time, I hear what you're saying, and I do agree. I think, but at the same time, we need to take into consideration that I think this is her first film in terms of the actual director. Was she a writer as well? I believe she was a writer too.
I believe so. Yeah. So yes, first movie, and it's competently made, right? It looks. I actually don't think it looks that great. I think specifically the darker scenes without the light look very muddy, and I didn't enjoy them. And I don't know enough about filmmaking to know what went wrong there, but I just thought, oh, this looks like trash. But then when there's light, it looks actually quite nice. And this warm orange light in the dark forest, I think, worked quite well. But that's about it. Like it is completely made, but it's like another case of a competent director who should not be let near a pen, right? Because like many directors, seemingly these days, maybe that's my personal experience, just the movies I've seen recently. Like it's always the story that's the problem, and the same is true here. Like if somebody else wrote a better story, I'm sure she could film it competently, and that's a reason why director has a separate job, right? And that's like I'm not saying she should never make movies again. Like that's like she's clearly pretty good at what she does, especially, and will only get better with experience, presumably. It's just that the story doesn't work, like on the most basic level, and I judge it based on its final product. And it's like if this director needs 3 or 4 movies to start making good movies, then good for her and any investors that want to give her that many chances. And if 4 movies from now she's making great movies, then great. Just this wasn't one of them.
Yeah. I would have to agree too. But I'm still kind of disappointed that you didn't like the look of the monsters. Like, especially there was one scene with the monsters where they stood up, right?
Yeah.
And especially one of them stood up right next to the tree, and it looked tree-like. That kind of still fell with the theme in terms of parallel and
But here's the thing: I've seen pictures of Slender Man. Like, it's the same thing.
I haven't actually.
It's the long arms. It's the grotesque proportions. Like, this is very much like very standard stuff. And number one, it didn't remind me of fairies. Like, even within the movie, right? Like, there's this painting at the end, and that fairy looks a lot like the fairies we know from mythology. And maybe there was a point being made there about how the legends are not like reality, and that's fine. I don't know. I don't know that that's a statement. It's certainly a difference. But it's just that the monster designs, like, I think, like, the use of shadow and silhouette and stuff like that, that's all perfectly fine. But they, like, the more we see of them, the less interesting they are, because it's just very generic monster design. I've seen this 100 times.
And you didn't like the way they behave, because I liked how they were.
Again, like every other movie monster.
Yeah, but I hated that. But it was kind of like they were subtle, and then they just suddenly went erratic.
So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. I think a creature design, like, I'm a big fan of monster movies, right? And a well-made monster movie is a wonderful thing. Making it, like the last thing you want to do is make it generic. And there actually have been movies about changelings, right? So have you seen Annihilation?
Yes.
Right? So the monster at the end of that imitates the main character, right? And it matches her movements, and over time it becomes more human-like. It starts off as this liquid metal kind of thing, and then over time features develop, and by the end it's an exact replica, right? So that's one way of doing it. Like one thing that could have been cool is if they start out completely featureless, and then over time, every time they encounter a human, they become more lifelike. And they talk about how it's difficult to get the eyes wrong, or for a while they had the wrong number of fingers or whatever. But we are not shown this. Like, if we had seen the changelings like 5-6 times over the course of the movie, and each time it got closer, that would have been interesting, right? There would have been like tension about how, okay, well, this is working towards something, and eventually the copy will be perfect, and then bad thing happens.
And I think that scene could have been incorporated, especially when they were actually watching them. So when they actually perform, because they say they do that every night where they have to perform for them and they watch them, they could have actually, like, those could have been the scenes where they're actually transforming and then they're copying, and then you can see that they're getting closer to that transformation. But like I said, none of that was.
But they didn't show them.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. They just weren't used as much as they should have been to make the movie more effective.
Yeah. And then they have this big rule about how don't ever go outside after dark, and then they go outside after dark, and it's fine.
That scene is why that was the scene I said, what is going on? Like, when they were pretty much recounting the rules were, like, no way. The way that they were even saying it, and that just felt so pointless and unnecessary. I'm like,
yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, the writing here is a bit dodgy. I don't think this is intentional anymore. I just think this is just, like you said, it's just unfortunately just bad writing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No.
And it's fine if, like, they think those are the rules, but actually they're being manipulated, and in order to survive you have to do the things you're not supposed to do. Something like that would have been an idea. There's another one where, like, I've like, there've been other stories where there's a bunch of rules and the main character will break them all over the course of the story, right? Like you can do stuff with this. Or those rules can actually be the way you survive. Like, a lot of these fantasy stories are about understanding the rules, right? And fairies especially are all about the rules and about compulsive behavior and stuff like that, which also didn't exist, right? Like, one thing fairies are known for is, like, not being able to lie, for instance, right? That's something that's in the mythology. And so I read a fantasy novel once where it was a murder mystery and every suspect was a fairy. And you knew that they were all misleading the investigator, but none of them could lie. So everything they said was misleading, but technically true, which was a really cool story. But point is, like there's stuff there, right? You can do stuff, interesting stuff with the mythology, and they didn't really do it. They didn't do the baby snatching. They didn't do the can't tell a lie thing. The whole thing about can't go into the sunlight did not matter and didn't make sense. Yeah, I'm out of ideas.
And that's what I think about. This is what I personally feel like with the film. I feel like there's stuff there, like there's just potential. It's just it doesn't amount to anything.
Yeah, but potential is cheap. You have to actually deliver.
True, but with that being said, wasn't there anything that you did like though?
I thought the first 20 minutes were fine. Like the introduction to Mina, I thought was fine. Like this whole thing about why she gets stranded in the forest was really contrived. But everything leading up to that, I thought was competent. Like I had seen negative reviews, and like in the first 15-20 minutes, I thought, okay, like this is okay. Like this doesn't look too bad. Like the night scenes in the forest look not great, but everything else is competent. The characterization of Mina is pretty clear. I don't exactly like her, but I'm not supposed to because she's a miserable person, and I assume I will get to know her more over the course of the story, which we also did. But I was on board for a while. But after that, it's kind of like it doesn't look that great. The creature designs are boring. The mystery is nonsense. Nothing interesting happens. When it's very easy to come up with stuff that would have been that you could have done in that situation. I really think this is. So first of all, what was your positive to start off with?
Like I said, the positives for me was mainly the monster community, the ferrets. Unfortunately, contradicting to what you're saying, I actually did enjoy the aesthetic look of them, and I just enjoyed their whole subtle behavior and how it went from being subtle to like there was from studying to just erraticness, and I was like, whoa, that just for me that felt very tense. And like I said, the moment where how do you say their name, the ferrets? The monster?
Fairies. They're fairies.
Sorry. Where they were trying to the deception scene when Kiara saw her husband. I kind of enjoyed that scene.
But again, at this point, we knew like they had already done this once, at least. Definitely, like there was no ambiguity on whether or not it was him.
But I think the reason why for me that was enjoyable is because that was like one of the first moments of them showing their abilities of how dangerous that they can be and the type of destruction that it can cause. Because obviously, there was chaos in that room, like deception. Like that's the first moment where we saw them bumping heads and we saw them in dilemma. And I think there should be more of that. And you're right about that idea, which I was going to bring up as well, which I actually thought that they should have done, where there should have been moments where the ferrets were playing with them, where they would have to deceive them more, where they could have transformed into them and they could have just created a whole turmoil, but they didn't do that as well. So, but yeah, in terms of what I liked, it was definitely that scene, and it was the whole monster community, and yeah, man, that's about it. I think for me, I think this film was just a film that had potential, but to be in the theater, like you're right, you shouldn't be for a film. Like if you're putting a film in cinemas, I don't think it should be a film with potential. It should be a film that's already ready made. If you want to do a film with potential, then put it onto streaming. I know you don't like people referring to streaming as a place where you dump rubbish movies, but I don't necessarily. I don't see it as that. I think films that have potential should go to streaming because it's one of them ones where it's like, okay, I can see what you're doing with it. Let's see if the second film that you drop is going to be even better, and then you can slowly build up that thing into a franchise, the IP into a franchise. So that's why I always say stuff like that when it comes to these type of movies, because I just don't think like there's certain films like I think if you're putting a film in a cinema, then that means okay, this is gonna make us money. This is a finished product. Whereas with streaming films, I think you can sometimes don't get twisted. Some streaming movies that are box office, like a lot of streaming movies should have gone to cinema because you could tell that this would have been a box office hit. So I'm not saying streaming movies is a place that you dump rubbish. The streaming platform can be a place where not fully fleshed out movies can be still shown in this place, because it does kind of help filmmakers in terms of like if that production company can see, okay, this person has potential, they can end up becoming better, make us a lot of money. That's the place that you can drop your films at rather than cinema. Because
my take is a bad movie's a bad movie, and the choice of where and how to release a movie is just a business decision and a marketing decision. I think over the next, I think we're just starting to really, like filmmakers are just starting to really figure out how to make money from streaming services, like how much they should charge for it and how much streaming services should be willing to pay for a movie. But like we've had a bunch now where streaming services just get it wrong, right? Like Monkey Man was purchased by Netflix and then they sold it at a loss because they freaked out about its politics, and then it made not that much money, but I think more at the box office than what Netflix paid for it or something. So they should have just released it themselves. Like people haven't quite figured, on both sides of the equation, haven't quite figured out yet what movies are worth in the streaming age, right? And ultimately, I don't really like the idea of, well, it's an incomplete movie, so just dump it on streaming, right? Like a movie should have a point and it should do something interesting, and it doesn't matter how you release it. Like the choice of putting it into cinemas is just a calculation of, do we think it will make more money this way than if we sell it directly to a streaming service? Like for the filmmakers, that's a calculation they need to make, which doesn't even really apply here because this is a family production, right? This is M. Night Shyamalan's production company. They made this movie, they financed it. So that doesn't even really apply here. Like, I think just the script, like, there's just an idea lacking, right? I think they really had this idea of people are trapped in a forest and they're being watched by monsters. But then they stopped. Like, that was the end of it. And what it should have been is trying to develop the script further and try to figure out, okay, what are we actually doing here? Because I think there are, like we said earlier, there's like potential here. Like you have a character who has an identity crisis and has a twin sister and is pretending to be other people. And then she's being captured by changelings. Like there's something there. You could build this into a story, but they just didn't because they thought they had enough. And I think a cheap twist ending, I think, is just what they thought the movie needed. And that's the weakest part of the movie. Like I'm okay with like a hokey scenario if it means that we can put characters into interesting situations, right? Like if it had been something about identity and self-image or whatever, and the character undergoes some kind of journey and comes out a better person the other end, something you can imagine. You can imagine stuff. And the movie's failing is not how it released or anything like that. The movie's failing is that it fails to do anything interesting.
Yeah. And you said this. Oh, you mentioned that this was a family production. And I remember we spoke about this before. You said, "Is it Shyamalan?"
Shyamalan, yeah.
Shyamalan. You said his movie similar to this. Was he guilty?
All of them. That's his brand, right?
Okay.
So like mystery mongering, setup, like. You drip feed the audience mystery, and then in the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes there's a big reveal. And I really dislike that kind of storytelling. I dislike it not just in Shyamalan movies, but also in in short stories. Like almost every short story works this way, like especially like horror short stories and science fiction short stories, where not very much happens, and then in the last paragraph the point of the story happens, but then it's over and you don't actually get to explore it. I think that's really lame. I think it's a poor way of constructing a story, and so far she doesn't seem to have learned many lessons from her father's troubles. Right? There's no sense. Like, I didn't get any sense of like her growing up around him and his movies and saying, "Oh, this is a cool idea, but I think I can do it differently, or I can do it better, or I have a different take on that kind of story." That doesn't seem to be happening.
It is a shame with this film, man. But like I said, it's a film with potential. But you are right. I don't think.
I just think potential is not enough.
Like, I agree.
Potential is like in the script writing phase, like when you have an idea and then you build it into a script.
Yeah.
That's where you talk about potential. A finished movie, I don't care about potential. Like if anything, the potential is a negative because it leaves me frustrated. It leaves me thinking this could be so much better. And I can see how it could be better, but I'm not going to get it. And why am I supposed to cut the movie a break just because of that?
How did you feel about the performance? Because you lightly touched on it in terms of individual performances in the film, in terms of the character, not in terms of how the actor, but in terms of the characters that were presented. Would you say that you was satisfied with what was going. Of course, you were satisfied with what was given, but what would you say? Yeah, what would you say was? Who would you say was the best performance from you? And if there was none, because I personally, for me, I don't think there was none in this film. But for you, was there anyone that stood out to you?
Like they're all equally bad. Like I'm not even I've not seen these actors in other stuff. Maybe one or two or something.
Which I was surprised of Kiara's character, because she was in Barbarian, the film that I always tell you guys to go and watch, which I rave about so much. She was in that film as well. That's why I was a bit surprised with how they made her character perform. I was like, oh no, this is just not doing her. This is not doing her justice. Like, yeah. But sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything else. I'm pretty sure I've seen Dakota Fanning and one or two other things, but that's kind of it. I think they've been told to act this way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're bad actors. I think they've been told to act this way, and it was a bad call. Like I don't think there's any point. There's much of a point to it. I think it's just really clumsy dialogue, really clumsy exposition. They don't sound like people, which in a story about changelings is maybe the point. But why would it be? Like, why would these characters actually talk this way? What point is being made here? Like, they're not in a position where they've kind of had lost their sense of identity or something, and therefore they all talk the same or something, right? They are just people, and I understand that they're not like I kind of liked that they were calm, right? Like they'd been long enough in the situation to kind of get used to it and kind of adapt to it, because people will adapt to just about anything. But then Mina adapts very quickly. We don't really see her be afraid. We don't see her be emotional about it, even in the first day. And after that, she adapts or something. That not even that was there. Like I just didn't like any of the characters. I didn't think any of them had anything going for them. But I also think those actors did exactly what they were supposed to.
Yeah, which is a shame, and I don't understand why she did that approach. That's why I kept on saying, was it intentional, or was this just a lack of experience when it comes to actually making the film?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know this director. It may be that because this is her father's production company, she's never been told no, right? Mm-hmm. She's never had to earn or go through the gauntlet of criticism. Maybe this is speculation on my part, right? But I've seen there are many movies with terrible dialogue in them, but they're often very low budget, very amateurish, B movies, whatever. And this is like in every other way a proper movie. Mm. Like the camera work is pretty good. The sound is pretty good. There's no reason for it to be that bad.
Yeah.
In terms of the dialogue and the acting, it looks a little bit like first-time director who has never been told no, kind of thing. And that's speculation, but that's kind of how it feels. And as a result, it's not interesting. Like I've enjoyed some stories with very heightened and stilted dialogue. I like old school Star Trek and stuff like that, where characters talk and act in very wooden and heightened ways. But that's fun because it's like a deliberate style. Here, it's just like I get the feeling that the writer simply didn't know how to write more human.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I did not enjoy the performances, and I could have overlooked that if the stuff that was going on was more interesting, but it also wasn't, and it didn't even look that pretty, right? Like effects or cinematography or anything like that. Where I can overlook wooden characters if the pictures are gorgeous or something. Like none of the aspects rise to the level where I say, okay, this I can latch onto this and this is good enough. So now my answer is no, it's all pretty bad.
I think I'm kind of opposite to you in terms of what I can kind of tolerate. I think for me, the performance is definitely, I wouldn't say it's number one on the list, but it's definitely on the high end part of the list. I think if the performance for me isn't good, it's hard for me to get into, even if the budget is amazing and I think Marvel is pretty much a good example. Like Marvel, they've got all the aesthetics and just everything. The production looks amazing. They've got that, but then when it comes to the actual story itself and the performances, I think well, to be fair, they haven't really been criticized when it comes to performances, mainly the story. But still, when it comes to like the performance, individual performances, and like the story, I find it hard for me to get into the story when the performance isn't really so good. So that's why it was hard for me to kind of get into this film, because the performance just wasn't too great intentionally, because I think that's what the director wanted from the characters, to have that kind of, they were just all very similar. The similarity between them was pretty much the same. So I think that's what she was. I think that was the theme. I think that's what she was trying to do for us. And even the way that they were acting, there was no individuality. It was just, okay, you're all going to be the same because everything is pretty. That's what we're trying to mimic. You know what I'm saying? From, like you mentioned, the point about the whole parallel. What's the thing? Point the parallel. What again? Parallelism? Parallel? I don't know. What you saying? What you learn?
The parallelism between the idea of a changeling and the twin and the identity crisis and all of that.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's what she was pretty much trying to. She was trying to follow the theme throughout, even the way that the characters, were introduced, and throughout, just the characters were pretty much gonna. They were pretty much supposed to be the same. That's what I was getting from it, and I just didn't like that, because it just came out very bland and as if just very play like. But yeah, I don't know what else we could say to this besides the last falls, unless you got anything else to bring up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's just not enough there, right? Like, we've talked a lot about the performances, and we've talked about the mythology, about how it contradicts itself and doesn't really make any sense, but also doesn't really enable anything interesting to happen. And like I can deal with like bad characters if there's cool stuff happening, and that just wasn't there. Just in general, like, I actually went into this with fairly low expectations, because I'd seen Shyamalan movies before, and I knew what kind of storytelling this was. And I'm just really over just mysteries. Like, I've been burned so many times in the last 10, 20 years by like both movies and shows setting up mysteries and then never delivering. Like, it's not just a matter of it doesn't live up to your expectations or whatever you pictured in your head. It's often that there isn't anything at all, or it's the most aggressively basic answer to that question you could have imagined. And I'm so tired of movies just thinking they can coast on an intriguing question. Like, it's not even that it's that intriguing. The intriguing question was, who are the watchers? But that's kind of it. Like in the trailers and the marketing, like, the hook of this was, it's weird that there's this house in the forest and people are there and they're trapped and they're being watched. Okay. I don't know. Did you get anything out of this?
No.
Like, just going in?
Yeah, literally, like I said, I didn't really get nothing out of it. Unfortunately, which that was the hook for me though. Like, okay, who were they watching? Like, who's actually watching them? What the threat was? Is it a monster, or is it some sort? Because at first I thought, like, is this some sort of competition? Like, you know what I'm saying?
It feels a bit like one, right?
Yeah, when I watched from the trailer, so I was like, there was a lot of questions, which, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, the environment, the settings, group survival, my thing. So mix that up with a bunch of questions I'm asking, you're gonna get a very excited Jonathan. But unfortunately, when you actually watch the film, I was like, okay, so it doesn't really amount to anything besides monsters watching them in order to, just try to mimic and transform into them. But,
we haven't talked about the bird. Darwin.
Oh yeah, the birds.
Was there any point to the bird other than it's also an imitator, right? Yeah. Like, it talks but it doesn't speak, right? So it imitates the parrot. The parrot is also an imitator.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the birds that they used as directions in terms of the parrot.
Which also was stupid, right? Like, especially how, like, they let the parrot out, like, they're trying to escape and they let the parrot out of the cage and say, okay, show us the way, because the birds lead the way, but not this bird. Okay, so that was just something I wanted to get off my chest. Like, it's that one was just like, how does nobody?
But did the bird the purpose though? Because sometimes they have like these, like, even like, for example, in Argyle, right? The cat. I don't think the cat really had a purpose. I'm not too sure.
I honestly don't remember too much about the movie off the top of my head.
Sometimes, like in movies, then they just have like that animal or that thing there that doesn't really have any significance, but it's there. And it just, I necessarily didn't have an issue with the bird, but I get what you're saying. I don't think there was any significance, but I don't think the intention was for the bird to have any significance in the film.
Now that I think of it, I really think it's that it's an imitator. Like it's copying people.
The bird.
That's what. Yeah. That's why it's.
Wait, how? Wait.
Well, it talks, right? It imitates.
Oh, okay, yes.
It imitates Mina.
So do you think that the bird was pretty much?
I think the writer thought that was deep.
Yeah.
Like honestly, this is like the fourth instance of copying.
Yeah.
Like it's called like now we have a motif. No, the motif, the motif has meaning if it actually says something about, or if it connects different things that seem unconnected or something.
It's pretty much like a clue of what you're gonna get. Like it's like a foreshadow in a way. Like it's like, okay, this.
Yeah, but it's the laziest kind, like the one that doesn't carry any meaning. Like proper foreshadowing, like prepares you to think about it in a certain way or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's not just supposed to be a wink at the camera or at the audience. But honestly, like maybe I'm missing it, but legitimately, like maybe there's a little bit more to it. Like Mina does not want anything to do with anybody else, but the fact that she isn't cruel to the animal and doesn't abandon the parrot at the first problem maybe shows that deep down she's a decent person. That's the best I can do.
Yeah.
Right? Like she doesn't. She's like they don't eat the parrot. They which they could, right? Like the parrot clearly has to eat, and they don't have enough food, and that would have been, a meal, right? At a time when food is scarce. But they don't harm the parrot, and she goes on this big trip to deliver this parrot halfway across the country, and it's just a job, but she treats the parrot well. Right, she's maybe not especially nice to the parrot, but she doesn't mistreat it. So maybe that says something about her as a person. That deep down, underneath all the grief and all the layers of insulation she has pulled up to keep other people out, she's still a decent person. Maybe that's the best I can do.
Hey man, at least you tried. I know you had no idea that now that you actually brought it up. I was like, oh, okay, now I actually because you're right. Because I was like, why the hell was the parrot there? But when the scene where the parrot said, what was it where she swore?
Try not to die.
Yeah, and then she said, try not to die. Try not to die. Oh, okay.
Which is a little bit funny. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of time and effort spent on something with very little payoff, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't necessary. They could have just had given her any other job and just say, hey, can you deliver this to the client in this other city? Whatever, right? Would have been easier, would have been cheaper. I don't know. I don't know that we gain much from it being a parrot. And the more I think about it, the more frustrated I get a little bit that they didn't do anything interesting where the parrot is copying the changeling or something. Or maybe it only copies humans, but not the changeling.
That could have been another hint to the audience. That could have been a hint for them. They use that as a guide to. It's kind of like a Terminator where dogs can smell Terminators. Yeah.
Right, kind of thing.
That's really.
I know I'm just making stuff up and rewriting the movie, but
that would have been way.
There's not much. That's not much else to do.
Yeah. Man. All right, Daniel. I think you kind of said your last thoughts. So do you have anything else? Because I what you're rating.
No, I think I'm scraping the barrel.
So what would you rate the film?
So I'm giving this a 5 out of 15. It's just none of the it's not actually not terrible. It's just that there's nothing going on. It's got nothing going on. None of the pieces rise to the level of being interesting or fun or intriguing. It's just stuff that happens. I think the central a movie like this lives and dies by its mystery, and the mystery is kind of lame. And then which is also fine if you then build on it and do stuff. There's not much to this, not much to the changelings. There's no consequences or threat of what happens if they win. The ending is drawn out, and I don't know that her so she reconciles with her twin for the first time in 15 years, right? Something like that. And why is that important? Why is that the end of her? Why is that the conclusion to her character arc? Other than having gone through a life-threatening crisis, and maybe like people tend to like appreciate things more when they've gone through danger, right? And got close to losing everything. But is that it? Like, is there nothing else that has happened to her that made her learn some lesson or change her perspective? Like, why does she come out the other end wanting to reconcile with her family? I don't get it.
In the beginning scene where she got a call from her sister saying she hasn't been to the mum's burial site for 15 years, I think that's what it's building up towards. I think it was always going to build up towards that.
Well, we know she's running away from her family, right? And she's just avoiding them out of guilt. And she has overcome that by the end, right? Because she can look her sister in the eye and she can be comfortable around her family, like her nephews and stuff like that. Yeah. But why? Why is that the bottom line? Like, I don't see the connection.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean. I get what you're saying. Cool.
All right. How about you? What's your rating?
Me, I'd say it's above average.
What?
I'd give it like a 5.75 out of 10. I can't give it a 6 because 6 for me is good. This one wasn't good, but it wasn't bad, and it wasn't average. I've seen some average movies before. This wasn't that, but it was above average, so I have to give it that.
Just on the basis of production quality.
Yeah, and like I said, there was potential. Like for you, I get why potential doesn't work, and I do agree to an extent. For me, it's like if I can see potential, I think it's more solely reliant on the fact that these are my favorite type of movies. So the whole group survival thing and the dark tone, group survival, thrillery type of horror films, like those are my type of things. I think I'm heavily reliant on that, as well as seeing some good bits and seeing the potential in it, which is why I'm like, okay, cool. This, and I've seen average movies. I know the feeling that I get from watching average movies, and average is 5. This is slightly above that 0.75. I had to give it slightly above that because obviously, like I said, this is my favorite type of film, and I see some bits which I did like, meaning the monsters and that scene where there was a whole deception of the husband. Now, that's why I'm only giving that 0.75 because it can't reach the 6 stage, because 6, like I said, is good for me, and this wasn't fully good, but it wasn't bad. It was just slightly above average. So
okay,
yeah, that's me. All right, guys. Well, which is a bit disappointing because, like I said, I was definitely looking forward to this film, and hopefully she's watching this. Please continue making movies. You'll continue getting better. This was just a learning curve, man. Don't let this put you down. Continue making movies. Continue getting better. And yeah, man. This is just constructive criticism from me and Daniel. That's all. No hate, no hatred coming from us.
No, just disappointment.
Yeah.
So no, like. I wish this movie had been better, right? I wish I could have walked away from this and saying, yeah, this was a great experience, something that will stay with me, something, or at least that entertained me. But it's just not, and I think we should praise good movies, but we should also take apart the bad ones. And I think this is by far not the worst movie I've seen this year.
Yeah.
But I also didn't enjoy it. Like Sting had a similar kind of thing where it was a bit underwhelming because it felt a little bit like a half measure in places, but it was much more enjoyable. I liked the characters more. I liked the one kill more. I thought it did the atmosphere better. And I also felt like there was a plan. Like, I think for me, one thing that really drags it down is that I don't believe there was a plan. Right? I think they started off with a question and then built a movie around the question. But even though there is a reveal at the end, I don't think the reveal was given any kind of attention or care, right? Because nothing interesting happens. Like, the answer is not interesting. I walked out of the cinema kind of saying, this was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like I did not have a good time. It wasn't worth the price of admission, and that's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's discussion. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Join the family, man. We've got more movies that we're going to be discussing down the line. And yeah, man, we will catch you next week. Au revoir.
Bye bye.